Hey guys, welcome to my channel, So Ashley. Today we're gonna do a little thrift flip. These are probably one of my favorite videos to do because I love thrifting and I have a huge bin full of stuff to go through. When I see a thrift store, all I see is a pile of fabric. I literally just buy things if I like the fabric, like regardless of the fit, so perfect. Anyway, we're doing 2 outfits today, so let's get started. Alrighty, so here's the first garment. I actually didn't get this at the thrift store. I found it in my mom's garage. So I'm assuming it's from like probably 2007. And I really like this fabric, but it's a little too big and a little bit too long. So let's see what we can do with it. And then there's this jacket. This one I actually also got from my mom, I think. I do love the print, and it's black and white. It'll go with whatever I want it to go with. But it's about 2 or 3 sizes too big, so we'll see what I can do with that later in the video. So the first thing I did was some rough sketches of what I wanted to turn these things into. And for the jacket, I was thinking I would make it into a 2-piece set. And then for the skirt, I would turn it into like a flowy halter top. So starting with the silky skirt, I actually traced a bikini top to get that triangle shape that I wanted. So I just traced that out flat, and then I added like a 1-inch dart. And then I cut that out and added my seam allowance. Now it's time to deconstruct. So the first thing I did was take out the zipper. And I will be saving that for a future project. Then I discovered that the inside of the waistband was actually interfaced, so I don't have to do anything extra to line the booby triangles. Here's how it was looking with the waistband open. And before I could cut anything out, I needed to press it nice and flat. Then I can cut out my triangles. So I pinned those down and used my rotary cutter to cut out 4 of those triangles. Two for the outer and 2 for the inside. And then I sewed a dart in each one of them. Then I pressed each of those darts. Then I pinned 2 triangles right sides together, and I added some elastic on the edges to keep it from gaping. I just sewed that on with the zigzag stitch. Then I flipped it right sides out. Then I took the flowy part of the skirt and draped it around myself to figure out how much I needed for the bottom. Luckily, it was pretty much the perfect length already. I just measured my waist and cut enough to wrap around.
I think I'll do a wrap around. We'll wrap around.
This took a little bit of trial and error because when I tried it back on, it didn't look right. Kind of looked like a maternity top or something. So I wanted it a little bit more open in the front. So I just folded the front open where I wanted it to sit I then marked that point. And then I sliced that off, creating a curve at the bottom. But it was still not open enough in the front for me, so I pinned where I wanted the curve to stop. And then I just sliced another big chunk off. And then for the halter straps, I used this slinky dress from my stash pile, and I just sliced a big chunk off the bottom. And then I cut a couple of 1.5 inch strips out of that. And this fabric was perfect because it's super stretchy. So when I sewed it, I used a lightning stitch to keep that stretch. Then I sliced the little extra seam allowance off. Then I took my loop turner and attempted, keyword attempted, to flip it right sides out. And for whatever reason, it just wasn't going. It was like grabbing onto itself, like Velcro. So I tried it from the other end and it worked better. And there it is, a perfect little spaghetti strap. So I just pinned those in the opening that I left at the top of the triangles. And I sewed that on with a straight stitch. I think this thrift flip is actually turning into a bigger project than if I actually made a shirt like from scratch. Because I decided I want to add like a flouncy ruffle to the front of the shirt so it's not just like plain. But I only have this much fabric left to make it, so I have to figure out how to finish the edge. I think I'm just gonna do, I wish I had a serger. That would be ideal, but I think I'm just gonna do a zigzag stitch. We love a zigzag stitch in this house. Wish me luck. Here's how I made that flounce. I just cut a circle out of the remaining fabric. And then I cut a spiral all the way through that circle. Then I trimmed it so it would just be on the very front of the shirt and not on the whole hem. And this is where a serger would come in handy, but I just did a zigzag stitch all the way around the outside of that spiral. And then I attached it to the shirt with just a straight stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I top stitched down the seam allowance so the ruffle wouldn't flip the wrong way. Then I added elastic to the back of the shirt. So I kind of because I measured the waist to be like exactly the size of my waist, and so now I don't have a way to get it over my head or my hips. I ended up cutting it open, but I'm gonna need to add another tie, some front ties, and that's all I can do because I don't have any more fabric. So before adding the new tie to the front, I attached the triangles to the bottom of the bottom of the top, the bottom of the top. And I just did that with a straight stitch. Then I added my new little ties to the front, and I made them the same way as the other spaghetti straps. Then the very last thing to do is tie the ends and torch them. Just melt it so it doesn't fray. And here's the final product. Now back to the jacket. For the top I went traditional and started with the sloper. I don't know, I just didn't feel like drafting a pattern from scratch. So I cut that out, and please just ignore that I did the back too because I didn't end up using that. So the first thing I did was close up the side dart. And then I marked where I wanted my neckline to be. Then I temporarily closed that dart to mark where I wanted the hem to be. Then I turned that dart into a princess seam and added my seam allowance. And here are all the pattern pieces for that tiny top. The back is basically just a rectangle. Then it was time to deconstruct the jacket. So I whipped out my seam ripper and started by taking off the lining. And once I got up to the shoulder, I found this beautiful shoulder pad. And here's one sleeve off. This can take a really long time even with scissors, so make sure you have some good music playing.
Six and a half hours later.
So here's all the fabric that I have to work with. And I actually tried my best to cut everything out of just the body of the jacket so I could use the rest of the fabric for another project, possibly a festival fit. We'll see. So here are all the top pieces cut out. Then for the skirt, I used this skirt from a previous thrift flip, and I was too lazy to trace a pattern out of it or anything, so I just folded it in half and laid it down on the fabric and cut it out, eyeballing the seam allowance and leaving enough room at the top for a dart. And then same thing for the back. It basically ended up being a rectangle. So I made sure to mark which side was the center back. Then I just drew my darts directly on the fabric, using my rulers so I could make sure they match with the other side. Also making sure my front darts were a lot smaller than the back darts. Now it's time to sew the side seams. And surprise!
Surprise, Johnny!
It's a serger, which I really needed for the other project, but it was a surprise that I didn't see coming. So I'm gonna make so many bikinis this summer now. I tried the skirt on one more time before adding the zipper, and I did have to cut off a couple inches at the waist. And I used this super long zipper from a cushion that I just cut down to size. And I torched the ends so they wouldn't fray. Then I just top stitched the zipper in. And the last step for the skirt was to hem. So I sewed around the entire thing at 3/4 of an inch. For the top, I pinned my princess seams together and went back to my new serger. It's just so fast. Then I serged the 2 back pieces on. Then I roughly tried it on and it was way too big. So I just marked what I needed to cut off and slice that off with my trusty pizza cutter. Then to finish the edges, I just folded it over about 1/4 inch and top stitched that down. Here's the neckline and the hem. And the very last thing to do for the top was to add closures. So I used this fusible interfacing and these snaps that I've had sitting in my drawer for like many years. And I think I have about 100 left. So I put 3 on each side. And then the top was done, and here is the finished look. That's all I have for you guys. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And tell me what you think in the comments down below, or anything that you want to see in the next coming videos. We have some exciting home renovation videos coming up, so if you want to see those, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.